I wanted to make this video today because I wanted to talk about the Resident Evil games. I feel like we are in the Renaissance era of Resident Evil games. I'm gonna get into all the new games that came out, all the remakes, what they got coming out in the future. But before we get into that, I want to talk about my history with Resident Evil games. The first time I came across a Resident Evil game, I was at a friend's house and I seen the cover for Resident Evil 1 for the PS1. And I was looking at the cover, I'm like, yo, this cover is cool. You got a disfigured looking Chris Redfield on the cover, and all you see is Resident Evil. And I didn't have no idea what the game was about. I didn't even get to play it, which at that time I should have asked my boy to put it on, but I didn't even pay it no mind after that. And then I learned about Resident Evil 2 because I had a gaming magazine, because back in those days, I think it was around 1998, the internet wasn't as popular as it is today. It wasn't as advanced as it is today. If you wanted to learn about new games, you had to have had a magazine subscription. So I had a Game Informer and it had Resident Evil 2 on the cover, Leon. And I thought Leon's character design looked so fire. The RPD uniform looked so fire. And I was interested, and then I seen Resident Evil 2 and I realized it was the same as the Resident Evil that I saw at my friend's house. And I was reading about the game because it had like a whole like story about it. And I was so interested in the game. When it came out, my mom brought it for me. So shout out to my mom because she always got me most of the games that I wanted when I wanted them. Even games at that age I shouldn't have been playing. But she got me Resident Evil 2. Yo, that game was just amazing. For that time, there was nothing like Resident Evil 2, bro. Like the atmosphere, just being in Raccoon City, and then you had 2 playable characters because it was 2 CDs, I believe. It was a 2 CD game. My stepfather at the time, I consider him my stepfather because he was with my mom for a long time. Me and him, we had that bond of playing video games together, and that was our thing. We would love to play Resident Evil, and when I was scared to play certain things, he would play it. But then I just started playing it, beating it. I beat that game so many times. Like, I really loved Resident Evil 2. Then Resident Evil 3 Nemesis came out. I had that. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play Code Veronica, which that's the game that I was dying to get, but I didn't have the Dreamcast at that time. When Resident Evil 4 came out, I believe it came out for the GameCube. I didn't get to play that. I didn't get to play Resident Evil 5. So there was like 3 games from Resident Evil that I missed out on. But then Resident Evil 6 came out, I got Resident Evil 6, and that game was a little mixed bag for me. That was a game where they doubled down on the action, and it wasn't the same Resident Evil that I remember. You know, the survival horror with zombies. Certain parts of it was good. Like, I felt like Leon's campaign was amazing. Like the beginning of it when you're in the subway and then you're dealing with the president, stuff like that. That was scary, and then later on it just went on the full-blown action. So it was pretty disappointing, but I forgot the sales. I think it did sell well, or I may have been mistaken. It might have sold less than Resident Evil 5, but after that, Resident Evil 7 came out, and Resident Evil was like off of my radar for a while, and it was crazy because I was a huge Resident Evil fan, but my love was from the original 3 games, the original trilogy. I ended up playing Resident Evil 7, not when it came out though, a couple years after, and I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was scary, but to me, that still wasn't Resident Evil. You know, to me, Resident Evil's focusing on the main characters, Leon, Jill, Claire, Chris. Nonetheless, I thought Resident Evil 7 was cool, and it brought a lot of new fans to the series. A lot of the original fans liked it, but me, I'm not a fan of that first-person view. I like what they did with Resident Evil Village where you can do third-person. I think that should be an option. Then we got Resident Evil 2 Remake. Wow. That game is a masterpiece. There's certain sections that were missing, but not as bad as Resident Evil 3 Remake, which that's another mixed bag for me because Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, bro, that was one of my favorites. Like, Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, my 2 favorite Resident Evil games for the PS1. So I was hoping Resident Evil 3 Remake would be just as good as Resident Evil 2, but they cut out a lot of content. That could have easily been up there with Resident Evil 2 Remake if they had respected it and not cut corners and cut out so much content. But I still enjoy the game. I can still play the game. and I still love the game regardless because I love Jill. She's one of my favorite characters, her and Leon. Then Resident Evil 4 remake, which to me, it has to be one of the best Resident Evil games of all time. And mind you, I never got to play the original Resident Evil 4 on GameCube. I spent the night at a friend's house and he beat the game in like one shot. Like I literally watched him beat the whole game in one shot. He beat it quick too. So like I seen the game, but I didn't get that experience of playing it when it first came out. And to me, like if you don't get that chance to play a game when it first came out, it's like you're missing the experience. You get it? But to me, Resident Evil 4 remake, I really love that game. Everything about the game, the action, the graphics, the story, playing as Leon. He's a badass. He's always been a badass, but he's a super badass in the game. Then you get the story on top of that, and you got a nice blend of horror, scary, survival with the action. Like I feel like Resident Evil 4 is the perfect game, bro. I feel like Capcom has found the right balance of giving us remakes, but also in between the remakes. Well, they put the remix in between the main storyline. So I'm assuming Resident Evil 9 is going to be the next game. I know the director that directed Resident Evil 7 is working on the next one. He mentioned that there's going to be some more information dropping on the next Resident Evil game. Everybody is assuming it's Resident Evil 9. If it's going to be the next number iteration of Resident Evil, like a Resident Evil 9, then I hope they go back to his roots and let us get a new story with Jill, Leon. Some people saying it's going to be Jill and Leon, which, bro, that could easily be the highest selling Resident Evil if they do it right. I have been dying for a new Resident Evil to play with Jill. Like, I love Leon. Don't get it twisted. Leon is my favorite character, but Jill is also my favorite character. It's like, I love them equally. Leon probably a little bit more. And I feel like they don't give her enough love, and she hasn't been in the main story in a long time. I know they got the Resident Evil Revelations game. I didn't even know about those games till like a couple years ago, bro. I didn't even know those were a thing. I got Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2 for my Nintendo Switch, so I'll be playing it at work sometimes. So just so I can have something to play and say, hey, you know, I played the game. I know what the story's about. But I'm talking about the main line Resident Evil games. I need Jill to be in the story. I need her to be a part of the main story. We got to start like closing some chapters for some of these characters. But as far as gaming, Capcom has been killing it, bro. They've been killing it with Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, Street Fighter. Like Capcom is one of the last gaming companies that are still holding it down, giving quality games and giving the gamers what they want. They do what other gaming companies do with their little microtransactions, but it's not as bad as these other companies. Capcom, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago, they were in a bad financial spot. And I think it was when Resident Evil 6 came out too. I think that game didn't perform as well and the fans were so mad, and Capcom had to really like reinvent themselves and take a look in the mirror and get back to the basics. And it all started with Resident Evil 2. Some people say Resident Evil 7 because that game did well. But Resident Evil 2 remake, that's when Capcom solidified it. Like, yes, they're giving us what we want. I want some more remakes. I want a remake of Code Veronica. That's a game that I didn't get to play, and I want to play as Claire Redfield and Chris Redfield. And that's a story with Wesker in it. They have to give us a remake of Resident Evil Code Veronica. I would like them to remake Resident Evil 1. And that's another game that I've played, but I ain't get to beat. I also have it for my Nintendo Switch. It's just something about that mansion is so scary, bro. That's the scariest Resident Evil for me, Resident Evil 1. And it's because of that stupid freaking mansion. That mansion just creeps me out. I feel like, I forgot what they call it. Those people that, when they're in tight spaces, claustrophobic? Yeah, that's the word. I feel so claustrophobic playing that game because the mansion is so tight, these hallways. Then you got that camera, the fixed camera angles where you don't know if something is around the corner, which I should just stop being, you know what, and just play the game. But that game is one of the most scariest games for me, even today. Like, I'm scared to play Resident Evil 1. And I got the remastered version, but I would like them to remake it like Resident Evil 2. I feel like that would be scarier and amazing. And why not? People will play it. It will make money. Give us a new remake of Resident Evil 1. Zero, I got that too for the Nintendo Switch. That's another one. Like I got pretty far and I stopped playing it. But if they remake that, I wouldn't be mad. Like I want them to remake all they shit. Like I don't even care. And I'm gonna get the new stuff too. I just wanted to give Resident Evil props, man, because they've been killing it. One of my favorite franchises in gaming. I even love their movies, even though the movies ain't that great. Their movies are like a guilty pleasure of mine. Like I can watch all of them and I can find enjoyment in the Resident Evil movies. Hopefully we get a Resident Evil movie that's actually decent in the future, or a series or something in the future. The one that Netflix did was super trash. Yeah, this is why I believe Resident Evil games are in its renaissance era, and the sky's the limit for Capcom. Shout out to Capcom. Keep doing your thing. Yeah, if you guys appreciate this video, just drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe. This is some of the different content I'm gonna do on the gaming channel. The next video I'm gonna make, I'm gonna talk about certain PS1 games that I feel like they should remake or bring back that haven't been out in a long time. So stay tuned for that video. Also, I'm gonna continue giving you guys the Let's Plays, the live streams, commentaries. So stay tuned for that. It's your boy, and I'm off this.